Good evening and welcome to Gator's Garage, the home of all things historical gaming in and around the great and wonderful city of Savannah, Georgia. I'm Mike Baker, your host. We have with us, of course, our partner in crime, Randy Yan.
Hello, everybody.
Just before we get too deep into this, remember to do all the YouTube things like, share, subscribe, leave comments telling us how awesome we are, ask hard questions that we have to dig into the rule books, all the YouTube things. We'd really appreciate it. We've got an interesting episode this week. We are basically going to walk through the cumulative intel updates. Let me get them up here that we have so far for the armies of Germany. So some of this will be old hat for some of you folks, especially if you've been reading them on the Warlord website. Some of this may be new, and hopefully some of this will remind you of some of the things that are coming down the pipe. Again, that book is due to drop the last week of January, and Gator Games and Books is having it on pre-order, and we are at 10% off MSRP with the miniatures. So there you go. You want to get a little bit lower price on it and help support the work we're doing, you can order that Armies of Germany from us. So here we go. First thing is new national rules, new unit rules, and then hobby ideas. That's the first thing they talked about. And oh my goodness, they jumped right into it. Army special rules. Some of these we knew: Hitler's Buzzsaw, Blitzkrieg, Initiative Training, Panzer Ace. Although I think I always forgot about the Blitzkrieg. It only did 2 dice instead of 3 with my lieutenants, which my opponents, I'm sure, were always glad to let me forget. Yeah, you do that. So there you go. Never interrupt your opponent in the middle of making a mistake.
Yeah,
Don't remember what famous general said that, but yeah.
Napoleon.
Do what?
Napoleon.
Was it Napoleon?
Yeah, I believe
Okay.
so.
You know what? I think you may be right. And of course,
Yeah.
you're
And
very
it's
good.
funny, he made the biggest mistake of all. I bet he wished somebody had interrupted him at Waterloo.
Well, it was one of those things. He was under pressure. He was like, he was certainly not the general that he had been. And some of his quote unquote greatness really did have to do with good press. Because I
Yeah.
mean, the French just got chopped up in Spain. Anyway, we'll talk about that sometime when we talk about black powder. So some new rules, of course: defend the fatherland. Special rules for Fallschirmjäger, Waffen SS. I tell you, I've thought sometimes that I'd like to build a Croatian Waffen SS unit because they got the little red fezzes, and that would be kind of fun.
Yeah.
Guyver's Jager. Do what?
So that Panzer Ace, Mike, um, I'm sitting there thinking about that quite a bit. And the Panzer III, I've seen people take the non-DACA version because they want that medium anti-tank gun.
Right.
But if you take the early version, you get the 3 machine guns, and it's got a light anti-tank gun. But if you make it veteran and you make it Panzer Ace, now all of a sudden it becomes a medium anti-tank gun, and it ignores pins from small arms hits like anti-tank rifles and stuff.
Wow.
Yeah,
Again,
so
guys. Yeah. Um, that and again, sometimes people rightfully will poke at Warlord for stretching its history on some of what it does with bolt action. But what you just described was a huge part of why Germany was able to do as well as it was. The uh, the Panzer III was a POS, man. I mean, especially the early version with the light
yeah,
anti-tank gun. But the German tankers used them with skill. I think I don't remember if it had a 20 or a 37. I think it had a 37, which was again, it's still kind of a light anti-tank gun.
yeah,
It was later upgunned to a 5 centimeter. But yeah, to your point, this is where one of the ways and one of the places that Germany excelled early war was the quality of their tank crews, and even into late war, those high quality tank crews often, especially combined with high quality tanks, made a huge difference in engagements.
yeah. Well,
Fortunately, not
basically,
enough.
what they were doing is
Hmm?
they were able to put the shot exactly where they wanted it, so it'd do more damage. So that's where they're getting that +1 penetration value.
Yeah, I remember when I read that, I thought, you know what? That makes all the sense in the world. I like it. Then we've got the new rules. So, and they're kind of trade-offs. I mean, they're going to push your costs up. Fallschirmjäger, you're going to take units as veteran. Waffen SS, you can take them as fanatics. So I guess you could take regular guys and make them fanatics so they're harder to break. But inexperienced, if you take them as inexperienced, oh my gosh, it can be a real mess. And then the mountain troops. I'm not even going to try and say that word. I always butcher. You say it pretty good though, Randy. How do you pronounce that?
The Gaberjager.
Yes. Yes. I've always promised myself I would do a unit of Gaberjager in the soft caps with the green because that would just look really gnarly. And I just haven't gotten around to it yet. You know, I
The S would be
just sit around
silent.
all day, right?
Huh?
The what?
The S would be silent.
Okay. Gaberjager. Okay. All right. So new units. Oh my gosh, new units coming down the pipe. I love the Spastruppen. I know we dug into that last time. It's 4 or 5 guys. They have the infiltrator special rule. They don't get a penalty for outflanking. I think as a German player, you'd be remiss not to throw this in just about every army you have. So that's going to be pretty cool. And then from very mobile to unmobile, we had the Panzertherm. And I think Randy, you and I kind of looked at that and said, well, that's nice.
Yeah. Battle of Berlin, if you're going to do that, I guess maybe they would have done it.
And I guess you could put it, you know, if you had the right line of sight, but to build it in an army list, not knowing what the battlefield was going to be like, that's a heck of a die roll. The 5th columnist unit, you know, I may have some partisans knocking around. I'm just going to have to build one because these guys are too funny. They're like just crazy. So yeah, so I do like that they've added some more characterful units to the Germans. I'm sure we're going to see it for everybody.
Yeah, did you see the guy with the 2x4 in his hand?
Oh yeah, yeah. You know, he's a real threat. You know, and I think they can only have pistols. Although I think I see a guy with a shotgun or a rifle back there. But yeah, that's going to be crazy time. Again, I can see me taking just a quick 5-man squad just to. Again, it's going to be one of those. Now, here's the thing: it's going to be one of those cheap dice that drive everybody crazy.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have the rule up in front of me. I don't remember exactly how many we'll be able to take, but I could see taking 1 or 2 of those squads, both to cause mayhem and to have an extra die, and just as something random to bother allied players. When you're playing bolt action, especially when you're playing tournament, just come to enjoy the game because the history books kind of go out the window. I think it was the first game I've ever seen that had the Germans have any kind of active 5th columnist unit. I haven't even read much about it in the books, in my history books. But hey, it'll be fun. Be one more crazy thing that you can throw on the battlefield to drive your opponents crazy, and a different unit to paint up and have a good time with. I like the black there. Very
with
looking.
Objectives. You need an infantry to hold objectives, and so many objectives on the table. If you could bring a couple really cheap squads just for that purpose, just to run up and capture objectives, even if they die, as long as you can man that objective with something else, like roll a tank up behind them and hold it. They've done their job.
Yeah. You go take that objective for the fatherland. Oh yes, we'll do this.
And I saw this in version 2 where guys would have artillery pieces on the back line, and you always got to worry about outflanks. So they would take one of these squads and put them on ambush, and they're just basically there to guard the artillery piece in case outflank came in.
There you go. Absolutely. Now, they didn't have the 5th columnist unit in 2nd edition, did they?
No, but you had almost everybody had like the cheap units, like the British have the Home Guard.
Right.
And the Germans had shirkers,
from.
stuff like that. So
Yeah. Yeah. Stick them in the back where they can do the most good and the least harm.
yeah. Yep.
And I don't know if you guys noticed, but that says Stollard Toys and Games. John Stollard is the president of Warlord Games.
Ah,
That's kind of cute. Yeah.
oh, that's kind of like what's his name? Stan Lee from he always has to have his cameo in all his movies.
Always had a cameo. I thought that was really cool. Yeah, absolutely. So we kind of skipped one review somewhere, and I just wanted to swing back and pick it up. And we talked about this, I think, when we first started talking about third edition and even the Armies of. It looks like Warlord is really taking a much, I guess, more formal look at early, mid, and late war forces. Now they'll tell you, and they tell you in the write-up, and they tell you in the book, build your army your way, and that's fine. But just be aware that as a tournament organizer, I may well say, hey, this is a mid-war tournament, only things between 42 and 43. And it would not surprise me to see Warlord start to kind of push that a little bit. I know you and I were talking before we went live about the game Flames of War, which I know you don't play, but I do. And the way Flames of War does it is you can take any company, but you can only have the equipment that was available to that company during that time period. I'd kind of like to see Warlord do something similar. So, for example, you and I had anti-tank rifles and light mortars on the table at the same time we had that, I don't know what time period your armored car was, but I had anti-tank rifles, light mortars, and assault rifles, which would not have been mixed. The light mortars were really 39 to about 41, maybe 43. I think they were phased out in 43. ATRs were phased out like 42. So, I know you and I talked about that briefly. We're like, man, talk about a historical. Again, as long as you realize you're playing a game, especially at the tournament level, it's kind of cool. But if you're playing locally and you really want to capture the flavor of the period, that's where these guidelines can come in handy. And they're starting, and they've always marked their boxes early, medium, late for those that want to build that way. So now we come up to what they're calling old friends. So these are things that are, and I'm sorry, Randy. Early, I know you and I talked about this. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, I played in some tournaments that had time frames, and a lot of times they would say nothing past a certain date. They always allow anything before, because once you've got it, if you've got it, you use it until you don't have it anymore, even if it's outdated.
Sure.
But yeah, I can really see where we could say, 43. I don't like too early, like 41. It kind of pushes the Americans out of the scene. But mid-war is definitely doable, and then of course, late war you've got everything. But
right
now, what you could do is if you want to say, okay, we're going to go late war, and everything before that, if you want to bring it, it's either unreliable or you pay a tax to bring it, because if it's old and outdated, it's not going to be kept up in perfect working order, or you may not have replacement parts to keep it functioning.
I like that. That would be a very cool tournament rule that, hey, this is a 42, 43 tournament. Nothing from 44, 45, and anything from 39 to 41 is going to have the unreliable rule. That's pretty cool. I like it.
Yeah. It's like an anti-tank rifle. It could jam on you or be broken completely to where it's unusable.
Sure. Yeah. Because it's, again, if you're using an anti-tank rifle in 42, it's probably seen service. I like your other explanation too. You may have limited ammo.
Yeah.
Any number of things that could slow you down. I like that. We may have to play with that. That would be kind of interesting. Now, I don't know, Randy, have you seen a Sturm Tiger in play?
I have never seen one. They were massively expensive in version 2, And this is one you definitely remember if you ever saw it.
Oh yeah. I
I
noticed
don't even
sometimes
know what the points cost it is now if anybody would bring one.
yeah, let's take a look at that. So in the old rules, they were 384 for inexperienced, 480 for regular. Couldn't take them as veteran. They used the veteran troops just for other things. So just nasty rocket mortar, definitely good for. I don't even know how many of these were made. I probably should have looked that up before the show, but I think it was a relatively rare vehicle. So going into third edition, they've dropped the points about 60 points for the inexperienced, and they've dropped it about 75 for the regular.
Yeah, 75.
So it's yeah,
I
still not
just
cheap.
for 405 points, you could bring a lot better tanks. I mean, even a King Tiger. I would rather have a King Tiger than one of these.
Okay,
Yeah.
I guess and again, it's a late war, so that's pretty interesting. I guess this is one of these that if you have an opponent that tends to, if you tend to play at a club or with a group that tends to have a lot of buildings, this thing's going to be incredibly valuable.
Wow.
Um,
4D6
tournament
hits
setting,
versus buildings.
right? Right. Yeah.
It doesn't even matter how many guys you killed. You're bringing the building down anyway. It's coming down.
Yeah. I mean, so let's say an average of, yeah. I mean, let's say your average is going to be between 1 and 6. Your average is probably going to be 3.
3, and that's
You know,
12. So,
yeah.
yeah, you'd have to
You've
roll
got
way
to,
below average for it not to come down.
yes,
You
I
have
can
to have
do that.
paper dice.
And then you're like, darn it. And
Yeah.
again, like you're saying, on the other hand, for 400 points, so for 400 points, you get one tank with a rocket mortar and a whole mount of medium machine gun. So you're going to get 2 shots off this thing per turn, 12 shots in a general game. Now, 6 of those are going to be a killer. That's assuming you have a target every turn. As opposed to, and a Tiger is going to have a similar issue. It's going to get about 12 shots per turn. Now we start talking about the DACA type tanks, the Stuart, the Panzer III. I'm sure every nationality is going to have something that has some kind of lots of MGs hanging on it. You get a lot more dice for the points, a lot more dice to shoot with for the points. And I think that continues to be really something you have to weigh. Again, this thing's a beast, but it's also on a 1,200 point force. You just gave up or 1,250 point force for a regular. You're giving up 20% of your points.
Yeah.
That's a lot. I mean, there's your tank platoon right there, and that's it. So,
Yeah, I just think you could bring 2 Stu 42s for the cost of this, pretty much.
okay.
And you have 2 medium howitzer tanks now. And I think you could do a lot more damage with 2 shots from medium howitzers. I mean, once you get over a certain size template, it doesn't do any more. 3-inch template's going to kill just about any squad it hits.
Yep. And those medium howitzers are going to roll a lot of dice against buildings as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you pick up, again, not 1, but 2 medium
2
machine guns. So now you're rolling, you got an extra order die, and you've got 4 extra dice for machine guns, and then an extra howitzer. So yeah, really good point. Anyway, this thing's popular. I'm sure there's a player out there. If you're in the comments and you like the Sturm Tiger, you think it's a valuable, or you've had a lot of cause to use it, let us know. We'd love to hear that and share it with our listeners. And there's the mouse. There we go. So the other thing, the light mortar, and we were talking about now. If you watched our battle report from last weekend, Randy decided that light mortars grew on trees, and they were everywhere. And dang if they weren't accurate. I mean, the man could roll a 5 or a 6. I brought my medium machine gun out, set it up in a nice covered position, and they just got bombed.
Yeah.
What'd you
So
hit me
any
with?
small
Mortars,
team,
right?
yeah, any small team that gets hit by a light mortar is pretty much out of the game.
Yeah. Yeah.
Medium machine gun, even a heavy machine gun with 4, or an artillery piece. Once you get hit, you're losing 2 guys. Now all of a sudden you're -1. You can't move it. It's just bad, and you're zeroed in. So the next turn he's dead. Right.
He's just
So,
gonna keep hitting you. Right. Right. So it was a little bit more expensive in the old version, 24 to 46. Now it's 21 to 39. So not only can you take more from a table of organization point of view, now you can you get them cheaper in that special.
yeah.
So now one of the things they specifically did rule out is smoke rounds, and they
Only
say
in the
historically
Germans.
the light mortars do what?
It's only the Germans.
Okay,
Everybody else's light mortar can fire smoke.
okay,
Why that is, I don't know, unless it's just the type of little light mortar they use.
yeah,
Um,
they may not have issued smoke rounds for it.
yeah,
Don't
but
know. I know.
honestly, I've heard guys talk about the smoke, and it's like it's really hard to roll a 6. It
Yep.
really is.
Yeah.
So if you're wasting time just trying to put a little bit of cover on the table with this, I don't see it. I'd rather be shooting at something, trying to kill it rather than
Yeah.
put smoke out.
Yeah. The lack of smoke rules is probably one of the most glaring
Yeah,
issues in the bolt action system, has been for a long time. I know in their skirmish game, they actually went the other way and allowed people to place smoke grenades like they were Christmas. I think that's bad.
yeah.
Uh, I haven't done this in a couple of shows, so I'm going to do it.
Squad
You look
leader.
at squad leader, that's right. And there's other games that allow smoke, although many don't. They just ignore the effect. They're like, well, it slows down gameplay. Yeah, but it's part of the tools that a squad leader often had in his bag. Um, so yeah, squad leader, the German and American squads can place smoke on the move. Almost all vehicles can do gunplay smoke, and it's pretty damned accurate. And
Yeah,
then German and British tanks have smoke dischargers that they can set off on top of the tank, and that, of course, blocks
obscures him.
fire.
So yeah, we were talking about the Humber earlier, and if you look at the Humber, they have those. Even the little armored car, it's got these smoke canister, where it discharges smoke, and we should be able to
Sure.
use that to,
Yeah.
if I'm in the open, boom, I can throw smoke out, and now you can't see me.
Well, or you might throw smoke out to cover an infantry squad crossing an open area. So
Yeah,
yeah, there's smoke would definitely, again, it's that always that saw of complication versus realism versus ease of play. But I miss being able to use smoke. If you ever play squad leader with me where I can use smoke, it's a whole different animal. The other game that I play a lot of, this Quarters War, uh, actually allows any infantryman to place a smoke grenade,
hmm.
and it makes a difference. We were playing a game one time, and the person successfully placed smoke and was able to move their guys up. So yeah, um, really would like to see smoke rules at some point introduced into bolt action. Probably not. Probably not though. They had a good chance to do that and decided to pass on it here.
Well,
Correct me if I'm wrong. None of the vehicles can fire smoke.
if it fires HE, it can fire smoke, I believe.
Okay.
I think any HE
Well,
round. I'm not sure about that, but
I
they
know.
actually nerfed the heck out of the smoke from version 2, because before, if you didn't roll a 6, your opponent got to move the smoke so many inches away from your target spot. Now you don't get smoke at all, which makes no sense at all, because if I'm shooting, it's landing somewhere. There's going to be smoke
Right.
somewhere on the table.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm just giving my rule book a quick look over here. Um, well, I guess the explanation there's, and they dealt with this in Squad Leader as well, that you had to make a successful to hit roll for smoke,
Yeah.
and the key thing is the smoke is properly or operably placed. But again, would like to see a lot more of it available. And I'm just giving the vehicle rules a quick look here. Um,
I think the rules say only mortars and howitzers can fire smoke, if I'm not mistaken.
That would sound right, and only, I guess, indirect, not direct.
I'm not sure about that now. Maybe. So the lovely index. I can't tell you how nice this is to have an index in this book.
Yep. What page you got?
128.
All righty. Let me go to
I was
page
almost
128.
on it. Firing smoke. All howitzers and mortars, include those mounted on vehicles, can fire smoke shells using indirect fire.
Yeah, that's yeah, that's a pain.
So that's kind of critical when if you're using it with a vehicle or even an artillery piece, they have a huge minimum range now. So
Right.
you may not be able to drop that smoke where you want it. The mortar
Right.
may be your only real option for dropping smoke.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, but it's real hard to use. I guess
Yeah.
the whole idea is they really didn't want smoke gumming up the battlefield.
So unless I was playing on a board that was wide open and I needed to cross it, I wouldn't be trying to put smoke out on the table.
Not with these rules.
No.
No.
Well, the other thing is you're helping your opponent too. Unless you just try
How
to
so?
mask a tank and make him move or something, you wanted to drop it right on the tank.
Well, yeah, that's a huge thing too. Is smoke can be used defensively and offensively.
Yeah.
Offensively, you use it to mask your movement. Defensively, you use it to screen an enemy vehicle and make them shift.
Yeah.
So, well, anyway, it's hard to use in this game, so you don't see it used much unless somebody feels it has just so much artillery that they just feel like wasting around. Because you got to get that 6 to get the operable placement. That's all right. There's plenty of other mayhem we can cause.
So while we're on mortars,
Officers.
hey Mike,
What?
while we're on
Yep.
mortars, I know there is some discussion about spotters and light mortars, and some people, and they're probably right to say this, that if you can't buy a spotter, you shouldn't be able to use a spotter, but it's not written that way in the rules.
Right.
And so maybe at some point we'll see an FAQ come down that will address that. But so far, the only thing they've taken away is the multi-launchers can't use spotters.
Wow. The multi-launchers or the inexperienced multi-launcher?
No, any multi-rocket launchers, period, cannot use spotters. There was an FAQ on that.
Okay, and I have not downloaded the FAQ yet. I probably should, and get myself updated on that. Certainly before our next tournament in March. That's really goofy because of all weapons types, the multi-launchers are going to be hiding in the back and using a spotter. They're not going to be engaging the enemy over open sights. That's just crazy.
Yeah,
it is what it is. Okay, yeah, and you and I have even had that discussion. But the way the rules are written,
yeah,
if you have an onboard spotter, so like the British get a free onboard spotter, God, we hate it, and then it gets 2 barrages, hate that too. If I'm on the receiving end. But that same spotter can also he can spot 4 light mortars.
Yep.
And so, yeah, that definitely changes the taste of everybody's beer and pretzels. I mean, the reality is the light mortar was never intended to be a radio directed indirect fire weapon. It's a squad support weapon that pretty much lays fire over open sights, maybe over a friendly squad to lay down fire. So I'm sure there'll be some kind of adjustment on that. And if not, well, we'll just we'll all take advantage of it. And that's the key thing. Sometimes we'll be like, well, this rule's not good, or, this rule's a pain, or they should have this or don't have that. The rules are the same for everybody, and learn them. And I keep my Warlord rulebook handy and look at it on the regular, and I'm looking up these intel briefs as they come in so that I can make use of the rules as they're written. This is the game we play, and it's a lot of fun. But it does some quirky things like they all do. Better talk about officers, Randy?
Yeah.
The ossifers. So this is the old officer from 2nd edition. Yeah,
Office
I
hours.
promise you, when I did the slide, it was clean. It looked great. I don't know, but maybe it was a first lieutenant that wrote that out. Who knows?
Yeah,
Or a second lieutenant.
it's one of those inexperienced officers.
Oh my gosh! See, one of Randy's officers got
The
here.
30-day
One of those
officer.
point second Louis. Yeah, 90-day blunder. So the original team in second edition was one officer and up to two guys, and whatever weapons they were modeled with.
Yep.
And you had the different ranks. Officer, Randy, you did a lot of different things with officers. I tended to take the plain vanilla regular second lieutenant, just whatever I did. What kind of things did you do in second with your
Yeah,
officers?
actually, there was
Besides get them killed.
times when I brought like 3 men regular with SMGs,
Yeah.
and the other time I would use them regular is with my LVT, and so I'd bring the LVT inexperienced, and then I would put a 3-man officer team inside to man all the guns. So the points I'm saving on the vehicle being inexperienced was allowed me to buy a regular 3-man officer team, and then also their bonus negated the inexperience of the vehicle. Plus, and you can still do this in third edition. So I would move the LVT up. I would shoot all the weapons in the LVT. Then the officers would jump out and use their submachine guns and hose down somebody nearby. Then the next turn, the first thing they do is they jump back in the vehicle and man the guns again. So I'm getting like a free activation with them.
That was definitely a hole in the rules, because I would argue that if you use your crew to fire the machine guns, they may get an activation, but they're done. If you get that listening to you talk about that, if you've not read David Drake's Hammer Slammer series, you need to, because a lot of the action takes place in what's called the combat cars, which are basically half tracks with hover skirts. And I think you'd find it quite entertaining. It's pretty good.
Yeah.
Just he based the unit on a U.S. Armored Cavalry regiment. So the tanks are like these 200-ton monsters. They're great. And then but even the combat cars are nothing to sneeze at. They've got a 3-man crew, tri-barrel at the front and then on each side. So, and the tri-barrel is not that strange of a concept. If you look at the Huey, that's what it has. It's got a tri-barrel. So it's kind of cool. Anyway, mixing media there. But yeah, gun crew. So that was your second edition officers. I tended to take a 2-man veteran officer group, small team, harder to hit. Veteran, always with assault rifles. So if I decided to engage them in close combat or engage them in combat, I was rolling 4 dice at range, which was always fun. Third edition officers are a whole nother animal.
Yeah.
And the German ones, and again, the German book is probably a preview of what we're going to see for some of the other groups. So first of all, got that platoon commander, which Randy loves to take inexperienced, and I'll tell you, it works. He hides them in armor. I can't kill them. It's terrible. And then of course you can take
like,
one company commander. Do what? Do what? Pretty much. So the rules is written, you can have the officer +3.
Yeah.
And any weapons they're modeled with. New rules are pretty interesting. Hey, are you checking this out? So up to 4 men.
Yeah.
With rifles. Got to pay for the skill level. You can add submachine guns for anybody, but only 1 assault rifle. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I like the fact that you can increase this size so that they're a lot more survivable. And
right.
If I'm going to put them in a vehicle now, I can put these guys in a vehicle and they can man the guns too. Because like the LVT, I can have the 4 weapons on the LVT. I can have 2 pintle machine guns, a autocannon, and a forward-facing machine gun. So it's it's a rolling, just shooting machine. But you got to have guys because the crew can only man 1 gun.
So you got the crew manning the crew would be manning the autocannon probably.
Yeah.
Although bolt action doesn't get that specific. I would argue the crew should have to man the main gun while the passengers would man the machine guns. But of course, this is bolt action, so
Well,
we can tweak it. It's great.
so actually, what I would say, if you look at the LVT, and I have one here. So if you look
Right.
at it,
Yep.
the forward-facing machine gun is up here where the passenger, the co-pilot would be. So
Right.
that would be the one I would think that the crew would man, while these are all back here where the passengers are, and
Right.
they can fire those.
Yeah.
The other thing I'd like to see them do with vehicles is to be able to add crew for so many points. Because obviously, if you got an LVT with 4 weapons on it, you know, you're not just going to not have anybody there to man the guns. I think they should allow
And so the LVT crew can only man one gun.
one.
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, and I can see, with a truck, obviously the truck, you got a machine gun, that's it. But when you got a transport vehicle with multiple weapons, you should be able to buy extra crew to man it.
I'd be curious. Have you done any reading on the LVTs to see if they were undercrewed?
I don't know. That would be something to do right there.
Yeah, I'd be real curious to see if that has a basis in some type of historical reality, or if it's just, again, one of the shortcuts that they take to kind of make people get the most out of their troops.
Well, and
again,
so,
go ahead.
obviously, you're going to carry troops. It makes sense to have, well, they're there, let's have them do something. But at some point, you're going to drop them out. And now all of a sudden, you got a vehicle that you can't fire all the weapons on it. So why not have some guys? Now, there's a couple squads in the game that allow you to leave a couple men out of your squad to man guns in a transport. I forget which squad that is and what army. But
that sounds like an army book rule. Okay.
Yeah, it's a squad, a certain type of squad that can do that. It may be Russian. I'm not sure. I'll have to do some research on that. But yeah, so basically, when they jump out, they're allowed to leave a couple guys behind to man vehicle weapons.
Cool beans.
Yeah.
All right. That sounds like maybe the Marines. I don't know. That's where I would expect to see that. Okay. And now here's the and of course the German officers can take all the special rules.
Yeah.
But now this intelligence rule, this is interesting.
Yeah. So they had that in version 2, and it was a separate entry in the game. You had to buy an intelligence officer, and I think he was like 50 points.
Okay.
Yeah. But now they're kind of like including it into the headquarters unit, just buying an extra ability.
One officer in the entire force may have intelligence training.
Yeah.
So it doesn't have to be necessarily your captain, but it does have to be an officer.
Yeah.
And in version 2, remember you had the whole headquarters thing going on. So you had your two-man command team, your medic team, your anti-tank rifle team, a couple of other things that were all kind of grouped around that headquarters. So okay.
Yeah. So this would have benefited like Gurkha army really well, because you would obviously set up an assault toward the end of a turn. And then if you could guarantee that you pull the first dice in the next turn, you'd be able to get that assault off before somebody could react to it and start shooting at you.
Right. Now, there's a couple wrinkles to that strategy. First, it requires a die roll, which means probably not an ability I'm ever going to try and use.
I'm gonna say you probably don't want to try that one, because it's not nowhere near guaranteed.
No, but it's a 4+ with a regular officer.
Yeah.
It's a 3+ with a veteran.
Yeah.
And a 5+ with an inexperienced. So you're going to definitely want to put that special rule, I would argue, on a veteran officer.
Yeah, absolutely. You'd be wasting points if you didn't.
Yeah. Yeah. So the
and I think the other thing it's once per game, so it's not like you can use it every turn, or
Yeah.
So honestly, for 50 points, I would never bring one of these, because I can use that 50 points somewhere else. It'll do a lot more good than once per game. And you can almost buy a forward artillery observer for that, and you know how well they work.
You can buy another 5-man fire team.
Yeah, sure can.
Regular 5-man fire team, and if you're buying a German one, that's 5 more rifles.
Yep.
So that's 5 more shots you're getting down range. So
Every
good
round.
point, Randy.
Yeah.
Yeah, every round. Yeah, that's a great point. Kind of neat. I've never had anybody use an intelligence officer.
Never
so
seen
that
one.
tells me, it tells me that folks maybe don't find it quite so valuable. Might be nice to throw in every now and again just to make your opponent a little nervous. Be kind of fun. And then there's the rule. Gives you a real chance to control whose die comes out of the bag when you really need the first draw. So this is everything that we've seen so far on the third edition Armies of Germany intelligence book. So or army book. Going to be interesting. I think what's going to be a real challenge is once the Germans have their army book, what's going to happen with everybody else? What adjustments are going to have to be made? I think there'll be a lot of negotiating during tournaments and gameplay. For example, now the Germans have to pay for all their weapons, but they get a bigger squad. And maybe everybody just says, that's the deal. You can buy a bigger squad, but you got to pay for all your weapons.
Yeah.
And by the way, that squad can only have 1 assault rifle. So that's a definite change. The other command teams will remain at 3, but they can still model anything they want. Although I've not seen anything as effective and useful as for short to medium range is that darned assault rifle. That's just fun. Not bothered by moving. It has a range of 18, which means an effective range of 24 if you're firing on the move, just like a rifle. It's 2 shots too. So wish everybody, but if wishes were free, I think historically the Russians were experimenting with one near the end of the war, probably using the captured German equipment and reverse engineering that. So, what else you got, Andy?
Let's see. I guess we were going to talk a little bit about our game this past weekend.
Well, we talked about your mortar fest.
Yeah.
Which was backed up by your artillery fest.
And I only brought 4, and I'm really liking them. The one thing was, I don't know if it's because of the terrain that we had, I really didn't use my spotters a lot because I had to put my forward artillery observers in a concentrated area. And I guess maybe the scenario might have caused that too. So I didn't really get to use spotters on my mortars. I pretty much did line of sight with every one of them. So maybe I should bring them inexperienced, and I get more of them. I think, so you save 9 points each, so you can end up bringing a couple more mortars. And
more mortars, yes.
I've seen lists with eight inexperienced light mortars, and you're just rocking, 8 dice. You're going to get a couple 6s in that roll, in eight rolls. You
should get at least 1 6 every turn.
And then if you're ranging in after that, now you're hitting on 5s. You're going to start hitting more and more. It's just going to pile up.
Yeah. I know in our game the objective was actually. What's that?
They're going to have to move. Your opponent's going to have to move. If they got any artillery, it's just doomed. I mean, because I'm going to target this artillery with 3 mortars, and then I'm probably going to be a 6, and then it's going to die, and
I'm going to cry. So it was really interesting. You took a veteran list, and one of the things we talked about was that while veterans and regular guys all get hits and get pins, the difference between that 4+ and 5+ for getting wounds is huge. It's a 70% difference. I'm probably going to experiment a little bit with running more veteran. I still like running the Panzer Grenadiers, but I like mechanized cavalry. So there you go. I think if I reduce my squads a little bit and I had 3 armored cars. I probably could get by with 2. One of those not being the killer Puma, although the Puma is just fun.
Yeah.
And tried running some veteran squads in those half tracks, and then just better coordination between my half tracks and armored cars. I don't know what I was thinking when I put all 3 of my armored cars right, coming in on the right flank. That just was foolish. If I had it to do over, I'm not even sure I would have done any outflanking. I probably would have assigned an armored car to each half track and have them work as a tank infantry team, and that would have been a dang sight more effective.
Yeah.
Would have put a lot more rounds on your guys, and would have just made your life a lot more complicated. So we're just gonna have to have a rematch. That's all there is to it. Randy, so if y'all don't know, Randy pretty much tabled me. I mean, he wiped out my 3 main infantry squads that made up the platoon, leaving me with not nearly enough infantry to
I don't think you had any
recapture the.
infantry left, Mike. I think I got all of them.
You did.
I mean, you can count the machine gun team as infantry, and technically infantry in the headquarters. I think one of the headquarters might have went away too. Matter of fact, maybe you didn't have any headquarters, because I know you had a problem with passing order tests because you didn't have that bonus close by when you needed it.
I assigned the headquarters unit for the heavy weapons team to one of the half tracks, and they were the 2 assault rifles, and I deployed them to try and gun down your paratroopers, and that was just not we agreed that was probably not the best use of that team. And so I lost the ability to do a lot of influence. There was no officers to influence that side of the table. And then my other 2-man officer team actually ended up just being a mobile strike team, trying to eliminate some of your small teams and begin, whittling down your dice count. So neither officer really got used as an officer. I used them more as an additional infantry team. And to your point, all 3 of my infantry squads got routed off the field. We kind of just looked at each other when that happened and said, "Yeah, these guys are done."
Yeah. So
go ahead.
I like the regular infantry in some instances, but only if they can take 2 light machine guns. So if you take, you can take like a 6 or 7-man squad with 2 light machine guns, and their primary goal is to stay all the way back and just shoot out at range. So they're less likely to take incoming fire.
Right.
And especially in the case of the Germans, they're going to get 10 shots with those 2 light machine guns.
And your Panzer Grenadiers can do that. They can take 2 light machine guns as regular infantry. And I don't think any of my squads had 2. They all were 1.
No. So I was surprised you didn't bring 2 in at least one of your squads.
Well, my thought process was that the half track provided the other
machine gun. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Again, I made a few mistakes. I don't. The army list may have been a little back-footed, but I made some serious tactical mistakes. And of course, everybody does this, but I think even you would agree the dice were not my friends for most of that game. Pass the save. How about no? Randy had to pass the save. How about yeah?
Yeah. See, cover saves are tough. They're hard to pass.
Yes.
Unless you got my dice. But no, it's the multiplication of, a veteran, you take fewer cover saves. And if you're in hard cover, that's a good save. But light cover is really tough to pass.
5+. Yeah.
Yeah.
You got to fail that 2/3 of the time.
Yeah.
And now, in the open, you're just dog meat.
The scenario probably had as much to do with you losing as anything, because it was really weighted for the attacker, and your army wasn't really set up for that. Now, had we played something like envelopment, with all your half tracks and guy, you would have had an easy time against my list, because you could just put your guys in it and just bull rush, go forward.
Right. Yeah, mechanized infantry is all about movement. And to your point, in that particular game, the defender really is coming in dribs and drabs. And that's just recipe for disaster. I mean, you can read the number of stories where attacks came in piecemeal and just got chewed up, even where the opposing force had an advantage, much less even up.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we can blame the scenario a little bit. John Ross won't mind too much, but yeah, definitely, it was fun, Randy. And heavens, I hope we get to do it again. I like the whole video gaming concept. I know that's a kind of a specialty of your channel too, is the live game and the long form play gameplay. And we got some great compliments on our on both videos. So
Yeah.
definitely looking forward to doing it again. Probably bring my Germans back. I mean, I really like to pitch them against your British, and I know you like to run your British. So there we go. He's got the
So
sexy camera.
we've got the
I like it.
equipment. Next time, I think we'll have a little better videotaping too.
That sounds good. I like that
Yeah.
idea. I
Now,
get my revenue up a little bit. I may have to get one for myself
if
just
I can
to.
make it tomorrow night, I'll try to bring my stuff and maybe record the game with whoever I play tomorrow
Well,
night.
we're going to be at Savannah Lion in
Mhm.
Pooler, Georgia tomorrow for the
Yeah.
monthly club meeting. So for those of you that are watching, if you're in Savannah, we have a historical club that meets the third Friday of each month pretty regularly. Um, and we host different games. It's always open play. If you want to bring bolt action and play, please do. If you want to play something else, just speak up. There's usually some theme. Tomorrow night is themed for bolt action. And we've got at least, if Randy comes with, we've got at least two guys doing bolt action. I may do bolt action. I may do Battle of the Bulls with Big James, who really wants to get his game on the table. But regardless, Savannah Lions is always glad to have us. They generally will have a couple, three tables of miniature open for miniature play on a Friday. They're big enough that they can do, the ubiquitous Friday Night Magic game and still have room for miniature players, which is big tip of the hat to Savannah Lion, which is really cool. And we've found that our club meeting there gets a little bit more exposure, and it's all about growing the club and growing the hobby. I love historical gaming. I think it gets. I think there's more to it than people sometimes realize. In all periods, you start looking at the army list that people build for World War II: Hungarians, partisans, Italians, French, Free French, Polish. I mean, just everybody played, and they're all slightly different, and that's really cool. And I'll pitch that up against almost any sci-fi milieu anytime. So there you go. That's my plug for historical gaming. All right, so Randy, can't wait to do it again.
Yeah.
And what else you got?
Huh? What'd you say?
I said, what else you got?
Oh, yeah. So on my channel, Bolt Action 1944, I planned on doing it early this week, but I'm having a little trouble setting up my intro video. And so this weekend, sometime Saturday or Sunday, I'm going to do a tutorial on scratch building a building, and I'm going to go through the steps that I use to build a building from foam board.
You're not going to believe this, Randy, but Gabby was just saying, it's my wife, was just saying, Randy should do some video showing how he builds things because many of the buildings you see on Randy's boards are buildings Randy built from scratch, and
Yeah.
he does a fantastic job. I am looking forward to seeing that, and of course, it'll be on the Gator Games Facebook page. We'll share it to Reddit. Yeah, definitely want to get that out there. Um, you'll hear me say that terrain is as much part of the story of your table as your army is. If you've already got two armies for bolt action. If you don't have terrain, you need to get some. Yeah,
Yeah.
you can go to the hobby store or the game store and play on their 40K terrain,
Say
but
hello,
you just
Patton.
can't be out. Hey, fella, you just can't beat having good looking World War II terrain to play on. And the
Yeah.
store won't mind if you bring your own stuff. I mean, that's just pretty cool. So there you go. All
Yeah.
right. Well, I think we've covered the waterfront, my brother.
We did.
So one last thing. It is, of course, our battle 80th anniversary of the Battle of the Bulge. In honor of that, Gator Games is having a sale, 20% off all World War II themed items. Use the code BULGE80 at checkout to claim the discount on anything related to World War II. It's going to be the buildings like the Normandy buildings, all the miniatures, any of our rules. It's our way of honoring those guys that stopped the Germans 80 years ago, and our way of saying Merry Christmas to our customers and friends. So swing on over and take a picture, take a look. And this is also includes items that are on pre-order or back order, where we will honor the pricing for any of that
So
because we really appreciate our friends.
does that
What's that,
include
Randy?
the Micro Arts studio stuff?
It does.
Awesome.
Yes. And so now's a good time to pick that up on discount. So there you go. Yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things. I'm like, you know what? Let's Merry Christmas to the folks. All the links to our store will be in the notes below. The link to Randy's YouTube channel will be in the show notes, as well as the links to Warzone Atlanta, that's big con that's coming up, and Siege of Augusta, which is coming up. So there's lots of stuff coming on. Best way to support us, of course, buy some merch, or you can buy us a coffee on Ko-Fi or Patreon. The other great way to support the channel that doesn't cost you a thing is like, share, subscribe, and drop a comment telling us how crazy we are. That would be fantastic. So that's everything I have. Randy, anything else for the folks before we go?
I'm good.
All right. Well, we knew that. All right, guys. We probably won't have a show next weekend with it being Christmas.
Christmas,
but we'll definitely catch something the next week. So Merry Christmas, Happy
Merry
Hanukkah,
Christmas,
Happy
everybody.
holidays. Yeah, Happy Festivus. Have a good time, and we'll.
I got all week off next week.
I know. I'm jealous. I
10
work
days.
for a hard man.
I got 10 days off.
Oi, man. All right.
Yeah.
Sounds like fun. Night, y'all.
All right. Good night.